The story begins with a young girl fighting against a dragon for the 100th time. Even though she keeps on failing against the huge dragon, she keeps trying her best to finish the dragon for the final time while getting mocked by the dragon at the same time. As the dragon continues to roll with the young opponent, it suggests that they should be taking a break, but the girl isn't listening to it whatsoever. The dragon realizes that the girl in front of it must be the strongest opponent it has faced till this day, as she is quite good for her age. With respect, it takes in all the high-level magic Thunder Blade, but the dragon doesn't die this time either, which shocks the little girl. The dragon then gets the girl unconscious by hitting her with its tail and instructs its minions to take her far away from the dragon's den where she won't get eaten by anything. The dragon is exhausted for fighting with hunters again and again as they continue to attack him for being an evil dragon, even though he doesn't do anything evil at all. There are challengers every week coming to defeat him, and they stop trying to win if they are beaten twice in a row, except for the little girl that he faced some moments ago. The dragon then quits thinking and falls asleep, knowing that thinking won't get him anywhere. It seems that the dragon is actually a Japanese salaryman who sees these stuff whenever he goes to sleep and work. Before crossing the road, he thinks of not going to work and depending on lottery money to fulfill his days. The moment he reaches the middle, a couple making out inside a car ends up hitting him on the road, only to get his untimely death. This is how our guy reincarnated as a white dragon, and he doesn't think he will be getting the answer behind it anyways. All he knows is that he is the highest ranked dragon in this whole world, but he doesn't like being called the evil dragon. His time after the reincarnation hasn't been that boring, as he passes time with the slimes and the fact that he doesn't have to go on work anymore. 3 of the slimes, named Surapachi, Surami and Surare, flies on their master's back because of curiosity, and they all have a great time, including our beloved dragon. He continues to think about having such freedom in his life as a salaryman, and while flying, he notices a monster attacking a human, which makes the slimes beg for his life to him for some reason. Even though humans treat slimes badly most of the times, they still want to save the human, as not everyone is bad. After hearing the request of the slime, the dragon makes an entrance to save the human, and the monster quickly realizes that the dragon is here to fight him. The real strength revealed by the monster was nothing compared to the dragon's strength, and the moment the dragon sets his mind, the monster gets obliterated to bits, and the dragon thinks that it has overdone to a point. The moment he tries to speak to the human, he runs away in fear, calling the dragon an evil dragon, and the monster who was defeated by the dragon wasn't lying down on the ground anymore. The dragon thinks that whatever happened was probably for the best, as he wasn't trying to kill the monster from the beginning, so they just head home. The moment they reach home, one of the slimes come running and crying to state that 3 monsters came and executed every slimes in the community. The dragon notices the dead bodies of all of his slime minions, and 3 monster generals states that they follow the order of Mao, and they will be taking the dragon to their master. The moment the monster generals realize that the reason for the evil dragon to be mad is that they have slayed all of his minions, they continue to laugh while mocking him, feeling that their master will not be needing a dragon who has slimes as his minions. The battlefield changes in an instant when the dragon reveals his true color to the generals, and the last alive general takes him to their master Mao. The moment the last living general reaches his master for help, his master Mao executes him, calling him useless, and faces the evil dragon face to face, who is here to take his revenge for losing all of his slime minions. The dragon protagonist faces the master of the monster generals and states that he is holding in for vengeance for the death of his minions. Mao is astonished how a dragon was able to infiltrate his castle and asks if his own minions have finished off the other dragons. Then he reveals that he didn't have dragons but slimes as his minions, which makes the whole incident quite laughable to the guy, as he felt like it was some kind of joke. Mao thinks that our dragon is boring and uninteresting, as he has finished countless of monsters before, and the dragon continues to wonder how much of his strength he should be wasting against his opponent to finish him off. As he continues to mumble about 20 or 10%, Mao gets mad about his perception and ends up using his famous devil sword against him. But surprisingly, his devil sword was of no use against the dragon, and he blows off his head by using the tail once again as some rocket hit the guy's head. As soon as the dragon starts walking away, calling him boring, Mao wakes up and stands on his feet, revealing his full power, believing that he has found his true competitor this time. Mao unleashes his ultimate magic on the dragon, which rolls all over him, but in the end it's not able to put a single scratch on him. Then the dragon uses his true magic on Mao, which then obliterates through half of his castle and the man himself, proving that he has overdone himself once again. The dragon then visits the treasury, where he meets one of the minions of Mao, who simply just started talking about his life problems. The guy actually tried to run away from the castle but ended up getting caught, so now both of them are contemplating about their life choices together. The guy starts talking about how Mao used to be as a boss, which makes our dragon protagonist remember his own boss that he used to have in his salaryman days. The guy then talks about having a sick mother back at home, as he thanks him for rescuing him and introduces himself as Pellet. As soon as the dragon asks him to bring 3 valuable things in the treasury, he brings a holy sword, a silk bag that can connect to a different dimension, and magical pea which nobody knows about what it really does. Pellet asks him to take every other things with him as well, but the dragon insists that he must be one taking all of those things with him, and also hands him a bottle of dragon tear which can cure all of the diseases. Before departing, Pellet asks for his name, and he rethinks about what his name actually was and tells him to call Wasan as he flies away. Pellet shouts at him to visit his hometown sometime, calling by his name, but all our Wasan is thinking about now is of his slimes, as he isn't fulfilled after eradicating Mau from the face of Earth. Challengers in the forest didn't stop coming as they continued to get strong by killing monsters, while the monster continued to get strong by eating strong beings. But our dragon continues to wonder how his minions got in the middle despite doing anything. And at that time, the young girl appears once again to fight with the dragon once again. The girl is truly focused on beating the dragon while he doesn't even care about fighting with her, and he hands her a fruit to feed on and calm down herself so they can have a conversation. She thinks of killing Mao, but she is rather ashamed that she is too weak to do that, and the dragon continues to explain how he isn't an evil dragon as he used to be a human just like herself. The dragon started seeing himself in her, which actually happened to him back in his previous life, as people's expectations kept him like a prisoner, so he advises her to listen to her heart, which is more important. After eating fruits together, the girl calms down for a while, so they continue to have a talk about how the dragon cares about the slimes, so even if he goes away he will continue to fear for their lives, so he wants to create a permanent solution for the problem. The girl listens to him and introduces the matter of a barrier to him, which then covered the entire forest thanks to the girl and the dragon himself, which will be protecting the slimes from now on. They also opened a signboard to show that the dragon will be moving away in some other forest, and now it is time to say goodbye to the slimes. As soon as the slimes hear about his decision, they continue to discuss about him rethinking his plan, but the dragon is stuck with his opinion, knowing that there is nothing better to do. The slimes only care about staying with the dragon forever, but he doesn't listen to them, which astonishes the young girl as she couldn't help but wonder why the slimes would have such a great connection with an evil dragon. The slimes then explain how the dragon has protected them all this time, acting as their shield, and also the fact that they fly together, but the dragon still takes away by wishing them all the best. The slimes promise that they will grow strong so they will be able to protect themselves even without him, while the tears continue to roll over their whole face in sadness. This whole time the young girl is conscious about the evil dragon, as he never stopped crying the moment he started walking, so they finally take a break and she never stopped patting his wings from then on. After calming down, the girl introduces herself as Kuro and apologizes to him for misunderstanding him all this time, as he introduces himself as Ya. When the girl states that this will be the time to eat something sweet, and the dragon thinks it is true, so he opens up the pea that he received from Pellet and gulps it down. The moment he gulps down the pea, he starts shrinking as he goes through a transformation and turns into his handsome human version almost instantly. The girl states that whatever he ate must be a humanizing pea which can turn any other race into their human version. But after a bit of time, he will be able to go back to his original version like before. The girl asks him to go with her to be an adventurer, but he instantly refuses, stating that the adventurers are the ones that always try to kill him, so he will be having fun instead of doing all that. Then they both continue to run down to the nearest town where the girl lives to spend their time. Somewhere in a small village, a girl wearing worn-out clothes and a Viking helmet with shackles on the neck is crying and speaking about her family, as she will meet them very soon. Then we can see a slave auction going on for millions of money for a pretty girl, and our protagonist and Kuro join the auction to watch how the stuff was going on. While our protagonist is amused about the whole thing, Kuro finds the whole show uncomfortable, not knowing how the girl will be treated the next day, as it continues to make her feel disgusted. When our protagonist asks Kuro about it, she states that the guy will be doing a lot of dirty stuff to her, which makes her quite uncomfortable explaining it, and there is a reason why they both are taking part in the slave auction. It seems that the village they are in right now is infested by a monster, which is making the place quite dangerous to live in, as the monster is a 6-armed bear which is quite huge compared to the normal ones. When the rich guys were scared to deal with it with the help of their minions or slaves, Kuro raised her hands to deal with it since the villagers cannot deal with it on their own. But our protagonist gets in the middle to deal with it on his own to test out his strength. He knows he could kill the bear in his dragon form in seconds, but he wonders how he will be doing in his human form, which makes it more interesting. In one strike, our protagonist slashes away 3 of its hands at the same time while uprooting the head in one strike, which makes him feel that he still has the same strength as he used to do. So, as the savior of the village, they were allowed to get into the auction, which normally costs 200,000 to even enter, and according to their current currency system, one can buy one bread with 100 zeri, as a person's average monthly salary is around 100 to 200,000. So, when they can already see that the bid ended at 22 million, It turned out quite high and they are already on the last one. The last girl walks in wearing a worn-out outfit, wearing a helmet at the same time, and the moment she walks in, people are horrified to even take a look at her face. She introduces herself as Irinu, who is not more than 14 years old, and Kuro recognizes the wounds on her must have been done by some human and not some monster. It seems that the girl had a beautiful face, so she was sold to royalty at a really high price, but somehow she was returned back after a week in this state. The owner said she kept making mistakes and she was gravely punished for that. Also, the person returned her when she was unused, which makes it look like the person paid truly high money just to soil his name. The slaver states that the girl is an expert in archery and can do martial arts, while the last owner didn't touch her, which makes her a virgin, but she now has an infectious disease. After hearing all this, Kuro gets so mad knowing that elves can get sick so easily even from unclean air, and now she worries if the person will live even for half a year. The whole room kept quiet as there was no interested buyer, and when the bid reached up to 20,000, our protagonist made the bid of 40,000, which got even Kuro surprised as she didn't know he had this amount of cash with him. Then our protagonist apologizes to her, stating that he will be lending some cash from her for this time, and he leaves the matter of Irinu with Kuro for a while. Then he begins questioning the slave trader, and he soon gets to know that he is just taking over the business for his friend named Karubura, which just sounds like the name of royalty, sound like pasta to him. He also gets to ask him about the normal pricing of her, and it seems our protagonist had some businessman thoughts inside his head as he is trying to resell her after she becomes healthy once again. Then he meets Kuro and Irinu back at an inn. Kuro decides to take her leave and Irinu thanks our protagonist for buying her from the auction, and she continuously asks to order him to do anything. He notices that she is coughing blood, which looks quite painful, so he hands her the dragon tear, and as soon as she drinks it, she recovers in an instant like she was never hurt before while regaining her full potential. Our protagonist even lets her watch her face in the mirror, which makes her so happy that she keeps on crying, and he mistakenly looks at her chest, which makes the whole situation quite provocative for him. But she still feels quite damaged as the dragon tear can only cure illnesses as it fails to cure the emotional wound at the same time. It seems that her hometown was attacked by the monsters and she was the only survivor in the whole village. Then she was met by a slave trader while she was wandering through the mountains, which started her life in the slave house where she was constantly bullied by others for her beauty standards. When she finally got sold to someone, she continued to get tortured by her master, which made her feel like her beauty is a curse, which developed androphobia inside her heart. Our protagonist orders her to sleep on the bed when she continues to state that she can just lie on the floor, and the next day, Kuro and our protagonist visit the blacksmith for Irinu's new equipment. He continues to borrow money from Kuro and they finally dress up as the new beautiful Irinu, who thanks her master and Kuro for doing so much for her. On their new journey, they face a monster and Irinu decides to take care of it on her own as she believes in her archery and martial art skills. Just with one hit, she pierces through the eyes of the monster, and the second blow given by her foot, the whole head of the monster blows up, which astonishes our protagonist. Irinu loves getting praised by her master for her skills, and our protagonist loves her smile, which makes him forbid her to make that same face in front of him ever again, as it makes it quite hard for him to look at her. At the town of Girizado, it was time for Kuro to say goodbye to Irinu and our protagonist, so she left 80,000 rise in a bag for them as they will need money to rent a room. Also, she states that she works for an adventurers guild named the Shinku's Warriors, so they are welcome to visit her anytime. Our protagonist leaves a bottle of dragon tears for her, knowing that she will be needing that someday, and promises to contact her after settling down. When Kuro states that they will have to visit her for sure, our protagonist states that he will do certainly, and even Irinu thanks her for helping them all this time. Kuro wishes good luck to Irinu, stating that she should do her best as it will help her to find happiness, which makes Irinu feel positive about her future. The protagonist knows that they owe Kuro too much for her help, and they tend to never forget that, as she wasn't able to sleep because he was nearby for some reason. The protagonist states that he already owes more than 300,000, so he will have to make quick money, and they go looking for sightseeing to find themselves an inn, which Irinu agrees to do so. Then in the inn, they enter the place and notice one of the big guys complaining about spiders crawling in his room, and for that he is asking for a discount or some kind of compensation, but the manager keeps on stating that they have always cleaned the room gracefully, so there mustn't be any kind of spiders. The protagonist notices that the place looks quite clean, so there mustn't be something like that happening, and the guy keeps blaming the manager for some reason. The protagonist realizes that the guy must be trying to scam the manager, and nobody seems to meddle in their business for some reason, feeling they will only be troubling themselves into someone else's matter, when there was nobody trying to create a solution. Our guy jumps on the bandwagon trying to make peace and ends up creating a duel-like situation between him and the guy who was asking for a discount to see who wins, as the loser will be paying for all the guests. The cunning guy finds the situation amusing, stating that he will make our protagonist regret his decision as he will not even be using his sword. But before he was about to use his sword, the killing intent coming out of our protagonist ends up making the guy fall on his back as he was too scared to even speak, which was noticed by everyone else in the inn. So, since our protagonist has achieved victory, the guy decides to pay what he promised to do so in the beginning and immediately leaves the inn. Then our guy goes on to book a room for one night and a meal for 2 people, and the receptionist ends up calling the price $34,000 while he prepares to sign for the day. Our protagonist notices that the receptionist isn't scared of him, and she is rather friendly, to which the receptionist states that even though she was a little scared, he seemed like a friendly person, so she introduces herself as Merida while handing over the room's key to him. As they leave for the room, Merida states that their room is the last room on the 2nd floor, and Jaryuu states to our protagonist that she feels like Merida isn't human for some reason, and the sole reason why the protagonist meddled in the quarrel is she was emitting quite an intimidating presence while the ruckus was going on, creating a dangerous situation. When it was time for them to sleep, our protagonist states that they will both be sleeping on the same bed, and Jaryuu begins to talk about finding ways to satisfy him. The protagonist finds it weird to state that they will only be sleeping together to move away from her fear of men. At night, when they both sleep together, he leaves the room having 2 types of problems. One of them is his appetite and another one is libido. The protagonist tries to fight both of the problems but cannot stand, as he has never felt like that when he was an evil dragon, as just looking at sexy girls makes him want to hug them, feeling like a pervert. Since having such libido isn't that great, so he thinks of dealing with it by going to the nearest brothel where he sleeps with multiple girls until he runs out of money. He realizes that he has nothing left after coming out feeling like a naive little boy, and Jaryuu had to skip breakfast for that sole reason. As they continue to travel, our protagonist could notice that she was feeling hungry as her stomach continued to growl, but she avoids the conversation, stating that her stomach was aching for some reason. And they arrive upon some goblin monster guarding a dead rabbit. It seems that the goblins are eager to fight with them, and our protagonist divides the monster group in order to fight with them. He instantly finishes the fight by using his dragon fist, which is the most important component of a dragon, and notices that Jaryuu is almost close to ending her fight with the monsters. When she finally finishes, the protagonist praises her for doing such a good job, and she reveals that she was using some kind of bow magic to make the process faster to speed up the arrows. Then they get on with scavenging the goblins, and the girl states the name of Cyclops, who is the guy with one eye and fights like a brute. When he questions her why was she interested in him all of a sudden, she gets silent and states that he is the one who destroyed her entire village, so he tells her not to endure it anymore, as she should be more carefree and always dreaming like a 14-year-old girl she is. The protagonist also states that she should be speaking out loud whenever she is feeling troubled, and then after selling all of the items in their bag, they have made more than 33,000 rise in total from the Adventurers Guild. On the way inside the city, they get approached by a painter to model for his painting, and when Jaryuu seems to agree with him, our protagonist decides to listen to her, knowing that there is no way around it. When the painting finally finishes after 20 minutes, the painter states that it will be free as he is the one who asked for them to wait, and he lets Jaryuu keep it to her. The protagonist could feel that he is getting emotionally attached to Jaryuu when his starting intention was to sell her at a higher price, which is truly uncanny. Then after a few days, our protagonist notices that Jaryuu isn't afraid of men anymore, as she can behave well around everyone and feels like she has been cured, finally making him realize it was really the time to act upon what he thought of from the beginning. Jaryuu is excited to know where her master is taking her while making a happy face, while our protagonist continues to rethink his decisions of what is about to happen. He realizes that her fear of men is gone, and he points the direction of the slave house to her, where they are about to head right now. She quickly begins asking him if she has done anything wrong which have made him feel like that, but he begins explaining how he used the theory of an old broken toy. Our protagonist laid out the plan of repairing her and then reselling her once everything gets better, and also the fact that he barely has a place to stay while he wanted somebody to really take care of her. So, he realizes that there is no other way than confessing the truth to her, so he states that he only bought her in the spur of the moment, as if he was purchasing a toy, and he might not be the savior who she thinks that he is. He suggests that getting bought by a royalty must be a lot better, as he has no money and a poor personality. But Jaryuu states that she only considers him as her true master. She is ready to do anything for him, which leaves him no way other than revealing his true image to her, no matter how scary it would be for her. He believed that she might want to leave after seeing his true face, as he reveals the form of the evil dragon with silver scales. But she still isn't afraid of him, as she keeps on standing in front of him, accepting him anyways. When the protagonist asks her why she isn't surprised at all, she answers that she already knew about him being a dragon, since she read a book that stated that dragon tears can cure any diseases, which made it more clear to her long ago. She also saw him transform on his own while they were fighting, and she states that she may have been scared before but not anymore, as she has already accepted him as her master, which cannot be changed at all. The protagonist tries to mention his name again while depicting the name of his enemies, and she realizes that he has killed gods before, which made the whole matter fly above his head, as he never expected to hear something like this from her. Then he points out how he came from a whole different world after being reincarnated as a dragon. The way he got into an accident in that world. It didn't stop there, as after being reincarnated he had to accept the torment from multiple adventurers, and that is how he met Kuro in the end. He also lays out how his minions were killed because of his fault, but Jaryuu still isn't surprised by hearing all this, which makes it look quite impossible for our protagonist. He asks her how can she be so calm after hearing all this when anyone would have been fearing for their lives already, and she states that how a new owner would not be better for her, as he will be setting out conditions on her anyways, which will make everything quite difficult. The protagonist continues to wonder how she really knew, as he had asked the slaver how he could sell her to someone who would not abuse her, have a sexual indulgence, or think of selling her as a slave to give her normal rights, along with understanding the loss of losing family members, which felt like the guy was looking for a family member from the beginning, as he laughed at his face. Jaryuu states that he has thought of giving her a peaceful life, so the incident that happened to the slimes will not happen to her anyways, and she also doesn't care if it gets dangerous for her. No matter how it happens to her, she will always be with him while acting selfishly loyal to his desire, as she wants to continue staying together with him. It seems that the day she met him, she has sworn to herself that she will follow him anywhere he goes, which makes up our protagonist's mind on not trying to sell her, which gives back the smile to her face. He quickly realizes that he could never say no to someone like her who makes that kind of face, and she continues to keep on crying. He also states that having an understanding girl like her will be profitable for him, and she promises to serve him the best way possible by even fighting his enemies. He states that nothing in their relationship will be changing, and from now on he will act like a brother at least to her, promising to become a family for real. And to fulfill that promise, they continue to walk around the town leisurely like a family while they come across a cafe where they both eat while crying. Then soon they notice that a bloody and wounded man was walking down the road with some guards, and our protagonist notices that Jaryuu was glaring really fiercely toward that man. He quickly realizes that something wrong was going on, which makes him think that a 14-year-old must not be going through something that she has gone through, and he felt quite ominous looking right at the sky dyed black like ink. After the incident on the road, our protagonist gets frustrated thinking about what to do next about Jaryuu, as she was looking quite intense. Suddenly, when Jaryuu gets into the room, she decides to take a break as they will have to go out soon, and she asks what he would like to eat, as she is quite excited to have their first proper meal together. When they finish up, Jaryuu takes her leave, stating that she will be back for dinner, and leaves our protagonist to contemplate what is about to happen next, as she has been acting pretty crazy since the moment she saw that man. He thinks that the whole thing might be quite personal to her, which will make digging deep embarrassing, but he cannot stop thinking about the killing intent he felt from her. Then when he met Merida on his way, she asks about why both of them are together this time, as Jaryuu was making such an angry face as if she is about to finish something she left unfinished. Merida thinks that it will be better for Jaryuu to discuss it with someone before she does anything hasty herself, which makes her feel quite worried about her. Then our protagonist realizes that the whole situation isn't any good, so he leaves instantly, running through the door of the inn while Merida keeps on looking at him. On his way, he remembers that the injured guy was taken toward the royal district, so he should try going there, and he suddenly meets Kuro, who asks where he is about to go. Our protagonist feels like he is quite lucky to meet her on the way, and after discussing the whole thing to her, she states that Jaryuu might be looking for her revenge, which makes our protagonist think of 3 possibilities of where she can go. He knows that there might be the monster that destroyed her village, the person who enslaved her, or the person who is her ex-master. Since the ex-master is the only person available in the town, they decide to give him a visit after remembering his name being Lord Karubora. Soon they reach the palace of Karubora, but before entering the mansion, they had to hand over all the weapons they had in their grasp, and another thing that made them quite astonished was that the whole mansion is filled with mirrors, as the guy is popular to be incredibly vain. The moment the guy enters the room, Kuro states that our protagonist should be on guard, and the guy starts to lose his mind before the protagonist is about to speak. Karubora continues to look all over his shoulders, as our protagonist is too handsome to begin with, and after ignoring his reactions, he ends up asking him about Jaryuu, as she is now living with him, thinking that she might have come into his mansion. The moment the guy hears her name, he starts to laugh, but the moment he states that she is now the most beautiful girl in Grisato, he starts to get mad, as he had to waste quite some time to destroy her beauty with his own hands. Karubora states that they are guilty for being more beautiful than him, and brings all of his men into the room to attack the people in front of him. Karubora lays 2 distinct options in front of them, and one of them is our protagonist will have to die with a beautiful face, or either live a miserable life with a hideous face. But ignoring all his words, our protagonist asks why he would do something to some docile girl Jaryuu, as he has nothing against her at all, to which he answers that it happened just because she is more beautiful than him, which is quite unforgivable to him, reaching him as his duty. Just upon hearing all that, Kuro blasts away the table in front of her in rage, and our protagonist fires up angrily, but Karubora is laughing, thinking that they will not be able to do anything empty-handed while he has armed guards. In an instant, our protagonist throws the broken table to two of his guards and they fall down like flies. Soon the others join them as well as Kuro, and our protagonist defeats all of them in a short amount of time. Now it is time for them to take care of Karubora, and before our protagonist is about to make a punch to provide him the same treatment he left for Jaryuu, Kuro holds his hand, stating that he is only wasting his time doing that, as they should be looking for Jaryuu. They question the man if she had come here, to which the guy says that she didn't, so they look out and Kuro asks him what the man was saying or doing when they met him on the road. After hearing everything, Kuro realizes that the guy might have been one of the victims of the one-eyed Cyclops, so they rush into the Adventurers Guild, believing that there must be some sort of information about the monster. When they reach the guild, the receptionist states that a village near the Kimmery forest was destroyed, and the one who destroyed the village was none other than a Cyclops who later disappeared into the forest. The people whom they saw wounded yesterday are none other than the victims of the Cyclops, and the subjugation force is being assembled, which will arrive in a few days, which made the situation quite serious. It is stated that the whole team of top adventurers and the Duke's army will be incoming to subjugate the monster, to which our protagonist realizes that he might not have paid much attention to the monster when he fought in his dragon form. So, he thinks of not wasting any more time going into the forest, so he says bye to Kuro. But before he is about to exit the guild, Kuro states that she will be going with him as a friend, while Jaryuu was throwing arrows at the monster, believing that she will be able to return to her master after defeating it, while the others worry if they are too late already. The next scene reveals the day how Jaryuu's tragedy started, as she came from the hunt and witnessed her family getting obliterated by the one-eyed Cyclops. Then when she tried to meddle into the fight, her father ordered her to get away in order to save her, knowing that she will only get crushed under the monster's feet if she tries anything. She ran alone so far away and kept sitting in front of a lake on a huge boulder where nobody was able to see her. Suddenly, a motherly figure appeared beside her and wrapped her with warmth and love, who listened to all her problems. She supported her morally after feeling bad about all her problems and acted like a good friend, which made her guard down. After believing her cunning words, she decided to put up on shackles on her hands, and she instantly revealed her true face in front of her, which made Jaryuu quite stupid that she even believed her in the first place. That is how she became a slave of her, and by acting as her product, she found herself in the grasp of the worst royalty possible, who treated her the worst way possible. As soon as her face was ruined, she was returned back to the slaver house, where the woman realized she has no way of making money off of her, so she kept her locked in the cell as she gained a dreadful disease. All this time, Jaryuu felt like all of this happened to her because she ran alone while her whole family died in vain, which made her want to die badly. The moment the protagonist bought her off of the auction house, Kuro met her in the back and she realized something was truly off about her. When they returned, Kuro handed her the sword, knowing that she wanted to do something with it, and she continued to talk about leaving her be, knowing that the protagonist will agree with that. But Jaryuu pushed her off in disbelief, but the moment she was about to finish herself off, she noticed tears in Kuro's eyes, which caught her off guard, and she instantly gets embraced by her. And now she is alive and well because of her master and Kuro, so instead of running away, she is thinking of finishing the unfinished business to return back to her master again. But one-eyed Cyclops isn't someone who can be defeated that easily, and Jaryuu realizes that the monster is playing with her, which is quite noticeable off the bat, as it wasn't using any finishing blow. Then again, our Jaryuu is ready to bet anything on her life to fight and win against the monster standing in front of her. On the other hand, the protagonist and Kuro was fighting through lines of monsters to reach Jaryuu, and they finally noticed the pile of animals being dead on the ground, which was probably done by the Cyclops himself. Kuro asks him how much power does he hold right now, as he is a human currently, and he states that maybe 1-2 of 100, which his dragon body used to hold, but he still can use his dragon breath. When they are about to cross different paths, Kuro hands him a magic orb which stores magic in it, and since he will be using a magic sword with electrical power, he would be able to avoid getting shocked. Kuro even explains him how to use the power, but he thinks that he will avoid it anyways since it started sounding quite cheesy and embarrassing to him. And when they finally hear the sound of ongoing battle far from them, they notice that the whole pack of killer wolves have surrounded them to blast them all together. Kuro and the protagonist continue to finish off all the wolves in the area, and they realize that the wolves may have come to take revenge for their dead comrades. But the saddest thing is that they aren't even the ones who killed them in the first place, and they even has to hurry since Jaryuu's life is on the line. When more of the wolves come like a wave, Kuro instructs the protagonist to leave them to her and move on to watch over Jaryuu, so he decides to do what she says. But he remembers to remind her that also Kuro shouldn't be risking her life as he isn't ready to have someone dying on him, which includes her as well. On the other hand, Jaryuu reaches a point in fight where she has no hope left in her as she sits down on the ground. When the Cyclops notices her lack of energy in the fight, it starts to mock her, reminding her that he remembers what happened in the elf village that day as he remembers her. He talks about having fun just like that day once again, and just then Jaryuu jumps above in the midair and places a dangerous kick on his throat as bloodstream continues to come out like a wave. It seems that the big guy is finally down and Jaryuu feels like she is finally in peace as she continues to pray for her dead family. But when she opens her eyes, she notices the Cyclops is now standing in front of her while having no wound on the throat and makes an incredible punch on her sideways, throwing her off on a tree. As she falls down on the ground, the monster picks her up, calling her strong, and also the fact that he will get stronger if he eats her. He also reveals that he purposefully let her leave that day knowing that the strong ones will get stronger and come back only to get him more energy in the future, which is profitable to him. When he reveals his real purpose to her, Jaryuu starts to feel quite conflicted, but she decides to use the hidden blade in her shoes to defeat the enemy, but nothing happens to the monster this time as well. He reveals that in the past he ate some higher being which ends up giving him some kind of enhancing healing power, and now he can play strong while smashing up little birds like her. Now he wonders what kind of power he is about to get after eating her, so he starts to choke her out and open his mouth to feed upon her for the final time. But the moment he opens his mouth and takes his hand forward to do so, the protagonist comes out of nowhere to place a huge flying kick on the monster as it gets stuck on a tree. The protagonist picks up Jaryuu, calling her name, so she wakes up, and after waking up she says sorry to him for trying to take revenge like this. The moment he states that her dark days are over and he is about to heal her, the monster picks up his weapon again and starts to walk toward them to blast them with one hit. The moment he blocks his attack, the protagonist realizes that fighting in his current form is a big problem for him since he lost almost 98% of his strength. But he ends up deflecting the attack and targeting the chest of the monster with his holy sword, but nothing happens. Then the monster places a big attack on his face that it flies him away in a great distance, and now he is ready to focus on Jaryuu again as Jaryuu begins to call out for her master in pain and agony. Jaryuu continues to call for her master and it makes the monster laugh on his own, calling it a sore disappointment. Then our protagonist comes out of the smoke and states that he is alright while he is bleeding from the attack made by the monster, while wondering why the sword didn't do much to the monster's body. The monster couldn't believe what he was seeing in front of him, and the protagonist continues to ask about his intentions about letting Jaryuu run away so he can have fun killing later. The monster continues to agree with the statement, stating that it isn't his first time doing something like this, which makes our protagonist feel like he was truly communicating with a disgusting bastard. But it continues to brag about how fun it is to rip off someone's arms and legs while they are still alive, and how fun it is to kill someone's loved ones in front of them, which continues to rage the protagonist as he has never seen someone more cunning and dirty than him. He gets reminded of old executives tricking people for profit as they only see their employees as nothing but pawns. Also, there are people who steal others' credit cards to ruin their lives, but even they cannot be compared to the monster that is standing in front of them. Instead of getting scared, the monster blames people for being weak and seems interested to tell a story to the protagonist, but our protagonist calls out for the lightning sword and he gets ready for another heavy strike to the monster. The moment he raises his sword against the monster, it starts mocking him, calling it a little thing, but the moment he gets to block it, the monster truly feels the lightning as he couldn't move anymore. The protagonist notices that the trick worked and he continued to flash the sword on the whole body of the monster in front of him, but then he does something impossible. The monster starts running toward Jaryuu, who was sitting down wounded, and instantly grabs her with his right hand, which makes the protagonist react badly. Jaryuu shouts for him to not worry about her, but there is no way that he is about to leave her in danger, so he thinks of pulling for a team-up thingy. The monster continues to offer him various things, like if he brings strong opponents, he will be giving the protagonist wealth beyond what he can even imagine, as they can have anything from the weaklings. The protagonist cuts off his hand instead of listening to him, which weirds out the monster as he didn't expect something like that to happen, and when he questions the protagonist about it, he states that it is in rule in their country to show someone their blood to make it look like an act of trust, since he will be able to live a good life by the wealth granted by him. The monster continues to laugh at the whole scenario, thinking that his planning has been going well, stating that their relationship will be going well, and suddenly, worms arise from the face of earth to attack the monster. It seems that the worms have been awoken from the underground due to the blood spilled by the protagonist, and they are now focusing on attacking the biggest enemy around, which gives the protagonist to run away with Jaryuu. While fighting with the worms, the monster gets mad and uses his one-eyed laser beam to finish off them together, and when Jaryuu notices it, She decides to sacrifice her life for her master, but the protagonist reveals his dragon hands to save the day. The monster couldn't believe that he was able to block it by looking at his hand, and the protagonist decides to deal with the rest that was in front of him. The monster couldn't believe that he will be on the road of death so easily, as the protagonist cuts up every limb of his body to turn him handicapped on the ground and continues to beg him not to stab his heart, as he will die if that happens. The protagonist knows that stabbing will do nothing to the monster, so he catches the beast on his words, as he has already faked his death to run away, and decides to reveal his true face in front of him. The moment the monster catches on the fact, it was already too late for him, as the protagonist stabs his head with the holy sword in his hands, which seals the end of the monster's fate. Serious things tend to go inside the protagonist's mind when Jaryuu doesn't seem to wake up, knowing that he has to cry hard now, which is the only way to save the girl since his tears work like a healing potion. He gets out the chili sauce he got as a prize and starts chugging it down his throat, trying to cry as his whole mouth continues to burn while he keeps on crying like a madman. Suddenly, Jaryuu finally wakes up and he lets her know that the monster is now finally dead and he was able to save her by healing her up somehow. Jaryuu realizes that he has saved her once again, as she continues to form up more trouble for him with every step she makes, and even though she tried her best to help him, she is too weak to do so, for that she is ashamed. The protagonist states that it is fine, as he is fine with that trouble, as he has already accepted her as a family member, so she can be more selfish to live the way she truly wants. When she finally calms down, they decide to go look for Kuro, and after not finding her where she was, they thought that she might have gone back to the town, and on the way, they meet the disgusting royalty who almost ruined the life of Jaryuu. The man was waiting with a load of men behind him, as he is disappointed not to see Kuro with him, as he is about to make the protagonist pay for his acts against his beautiful face. The protagonist instantly recognizes the man to be the Karubora guy, and the man quickly recognizes Jaryuu as soon as he glances over her, and the man instructs all his men to quickly finish the protagonist off. But Jaryuu isn't someone who is ready to hear all that and act like nothing happened. So she takes out her bow and arrow as she places a direct hit to the man's chest, which ends up creating a flow of blood, as he continues to squeal like a wounded bird. He again directs all the men to attack the protagonist, but Jaryuu takes the lead once again to hit all of them with her arrows, as she isn't ready to let anyone harm her master. People starts to run away after seeing the danger firsthand and leaves the royalty behind them, knowing that something is about to go wrong with him. Jaryuu asks the protagonist what she can do to the man, and he instructs her to do whatever she likes with him, but she decides to leave the man by keeping him alive. She also states that she has never considered him as her master, so he shouldn't be showing his face to them ever again. Then they both realize that the man didn't meet Kuro on their way, while we can see that Kuro is on her way worrying about the both of them, as she finished up killing all the monsters on her way. They meet in a weird way, as Kuro was about to attack the protagonist by mistake, and the moment she notices Jaryuu, she embraces her, which makes both of them cry as they were worrying about each other, as they have already finished all their business in the forest. It was time for them to go back to the town for their next step in life and journey. The moment they reach the town of Gurizado, our guy realizes that he has to deal with his debt as soon as possible, so they need to work hard, and Jaryuu was excited that they got to deal with a Kuru bird today. As they are standing on the side of the road, they notice an expensive-looking carriage, which is possibly the one which is owned by the landlord, as only the poor people have to walk on their feet. On the other hand, the lord's daughter was having a discussion with her knight about her father assembling a subjugation corps just the same way when the silver dragon appeared. But she still believes that her father would never attack the villagers, which makes the knight sigh on what she was hearing with her own ears. Lucille thinks about the silver scale dragon, who is completely different from the rest, as she has seen him with her own eyes. The dragon that can kill gods if they fight together. 2 years earlier she was in the Great Canyon practicing on her magic skills with the wand she has, but she believed that she wasn't good enough even though she has been practicing quite hard. She got away from her knight Rosella, as she has created distance from them, and even the guard might be looking for her, but she feels refreshed coming to the canyon to practice on her skills. While she was lying down on the ground, she meets some slimes who end up greeting her by mistake, and after realizing the ruckus they caused, they try to run away from the situation. Lucille couldn't believe what she was seeing, so she calls them back, stating that she means no harm toward them, and even throws away her weapon to make her believable to them. She finds them so cute, so they all start to get introduced to each other, and the slimes state that their names are given by their boss, as they somehow got separated from him. When Lucille states that she wants to help them find their boss, they dance in happiness while she continues to wonder if their boss might be a giant slime or something. The moment one of the slimes notice a ball-like particle forming on the rocks, it thinks that it might be something quite precious, so it was about to give it to his boss, but before Lucille was about to warn him, it ends up blowing up on his face and grows into a huge monster, and its subjugation is rated as a rank mission at the Adventurers Guild. The monster is none other than an earth elemental, and Lucille takes the lead, stating that she will be buying some time for the slimes so they can run away from the trouble. But the slimes do not listen to her and state that they will be attacking the monster to help her as well. But they soon realize that their hits aren't going to do much while they will continue to get hurt on their own. Lucille states that they should be leaving that job to her as she is capable to defeat it with her strongest magic power, and the moment it hits the monster's core, it blows up in an instant but then gets fixed in an instant like nothing happened. She realizes that destroying the core, which is that orbit, will just keep on coming back, but to find the hidden with the little amount of mana she has left, it will be impossible for her to fight back. After realizing that defeat is inevitable, she guards the slimes and sits down on the ground while guarding the slimes, but gets protected by none other than the silver scale dragon. The slimes start to smile in happiness after having a look at their boss, who is now about to protect them from trouble. The dragon then instructs them all to move away from him as he is about to fight with the monster in front of him, and he ends up making a great hit, but it doesn't do anything crucial. Lucille then helps him out, stating that there is a core inside the monster, so he should be destroying it properly to finish the monster off, so he rises up above in the air to crumble the monster into a pile of dust. Lucille finds his abilities amazing, so she begins to cheer with the others, and now it was time for the dragon and his minions to go back home. Before parting their ways, the dragon states that he doesn't think he will be meeting her again, so he thanks her for saving the slimes from danger. As he begins to fly away, Lucille thinks that he has stolen her heart, so she wants to meet with him once again. And now in the present time, she is discussing with Rosella what they are about to do today, while the real dragon man is standing right close to their carriage. In the evening, the protagonist and Jaryuu goes to the guild to get their money for the bird they have killed today, while their receptionist for today is the lovely Shiera, who is impressed by their abilities. The protagonist starts to brag about the bird's potential to make the situation look more appropriate, and Jaryuu thinks that her master likes that kind of woman, as Shiera states that there will be guests meeting him soon. In that instant, Rosella and Lucille walk into the inn, so they sit down at the table to discuss their business after getting introduced to each other. It seems that they are interested in him as he was able to defeat the Cyclops, and since he is capable, they are interested in him taking part in the recruitment test for their subjugation squad, as their target is none other than a dragon. They soon then reach the house of Duke Stride and meet Lucille there, who is also taking part in the recruitment test for the subjugation squad, which is just about to begin. It seems that the dragons have ranks in them, which our guy didn't understand and first, so he asks about it to Lucille, who begins to explain the whole theory to him quite easily. As soon as she begins to elaborate, it gets our man worried, since he doesn't know which rank he would be as back when he is an evil dragon. He didn't care much about it as he could finish anyone off easily, but now it can be a problem quite easily. Lucille continues to speak about dragons, and in the end, she mentions that she likes the evil dragon who is called Shining Silver and is in the highest rank of dragons. Suddenly, he gets approached by one of the captains named Jaryuu, who is getting ready to fight with him. It seems that he already caught on the fact that he is the person whom Rosella directly invited, which made him quite jealous, so he comes to threaten him with his weapon as he is the captain of the subjugation squad. While he continues to threaten the protagonist, he continues to feel some chill coming from somewhere and notices that Jaryuu was going insane while feeling the true agony of someone threatening her master. After seeing the sight of a young girl calling him a master, the guy keeps on calling him a freak for having her as his slave, but the moments continue to get intense with Jaryuu, who then gets her arrow locked and loaded onto the man for blabbering nonsense about her master while stating that he shouldn't be saying dirty stuff about her master. Even Lucille realizes how angry Jaryuu can be when someone insults her master, and the protagonist ends up calling off the confrontation between them, knowing that anything hasty can happen anytime soon if it keeps on like that. Suddenly, the main captain Garbaz arrives to hit on Jail's head, stating that he shouldn't be messing with the guests. And the protagonist asks Lucille if that guy is truly going out with Rosella, who then states that he is only causing problems for her while they have nothing going on between them. Then Garbaz holds Rosella accountable for teaching him a lesson, as she is in charge of testing him, and Garbaz and Rosella also bow down to the protagonist to apologize for their man's action. Then Jaryuu witnesses the situation unfold, so she also joins them to apologize for her actions, and the protagonist praises her for worrying about his safety, which makes her smile graciously. Everyone in the training grounds was overwhelmed to witness Jaryuu's ability, as nobody guessed that she would be holding in this much potential in her. Then in the close combat situation of the protagonist against Rosella begins, while they continue to cheer for them at the same time. Rosella promises that she will be fighting with all she got and starts the fight with the falling star strike, which gets quite an amount of sand in the protagonist's eyes. He realizes what she was really aiming for from the beginning and faces the brute strength of her strike, but it continues to weaken as she continues to blow him away. Then when it was his time to get on the attack, Ricilla realized that her magic didn't work at all, which amazed her by a great amount as she finally realized what kind of sword he was holding in his hands, which is none other than the holy sword Calibalg that was stolen by Mau's army. The protagonist starts to freak out, realizing that Ricilla will finally find his identity as he is the evil dragon which can get bad in different ways possible, but she ends up thinking that he must be the Mau. But to reject that idea, he states that he has gotten his hand on the sword from one of Mau's underlings, knowing that there is no way that Mau will be in a place like this. Jaryuu then speaks out, stating that he is not Mau, but he is more scarier than the Mau, which seems kind of mind-boggling to Ricilla as she wasn't getting any killing intent from her opponent. Then they begin to restart the fight once again, and Ricilla's statement of not holding on kind of becomes boring to the protagonist. So she states that she has never lost to a man, which encourages the protagonist more as he thinks of becoming her first man. The moment they engage in combat, the protagonist ends up providing a huge kick on her face, and he only gets amazed as she was able to aim his neck after all that. Then he ends up formulating the sound speed strike, which he found out after messing around with Kuro, which finally unarms his opponent as he ends up throwing the sword away from her hands, finalizing himself as the winner. Ricilla finally accepts her loss to the protagonist, and Garbaz announces him as the winner in front of everyone, while the others tend to witness the whole thing while being astonished. Even Garbaz states that he has never witnessed anyone with that much strength go against their Ricilla, which shocks everyone. Then Jaryuu continues to walk up to them, thinking that Ricilla has won again, but she corrects him herself, which freezes him up as if it was some sort of dark joke to begin with. And that is how the protagonist and Jaryuu were recruited into the subjugation squad, which was in their fate to happen from the beginning. Then inside the Duke's manor, he thanks everyone for joining his festive for subjugation and all of the people for their bravery. As the speech ends, the feast for the subjugation begins, where everyone that is participating in the subjugation is having a meal. The protagonist notices that the Duke looks rather young for someone over the age of 40, and he is concerned about the safety of his child Lucille, who is quite excited to join the subjugation squad, which seems pretty necessary to her for some reason. He continues to convince her that she is only 17 right now, so she cannot do that, but she keeps on pushing forward the matter of seeing more of the world, which is quite important to her. Then they begin to talk about the shining silver dragon, which the Duke thinks that she has seen in her dreams, but he doesn't believe that it will be the same dragon, which is why he doesn't want her to join the squad. The protagonist realizes that they are talking about him and realizes what they are talking about as he remembers the time when Lucille saved his slimes until he joined the fight. He also recognizes everyone in the scene as they tried to subjugate him once before, and now the whole team is trying to exterminate a dragon, proving that fate can take some strange turns sometimes. The next day all of them stand in front of the gate of Girizado, and Garbaz announces to every soldier to move out with them as they continue to march on their journey. In the first day during the lunch break, the protagonist gets to learn magic from Lucille, who was pretty excited to teach him, and his quick learning motivated her a lot as she felt she was seeing something unbelievable. Then when the mages witness his strength, they get quite excited to teach him magic, stating that they are quite interested in him, and he gets to learn a lot more magic in quite such a short amount of time. Then the second day during the lunch break, one of the knights named Zack introduces himself to the protagonist as he has already heard of him from everyone, including Lucille, who praised a lot about his magic skills. Then when the praising finishes up, Zack asks about Jaryuu and her age as she keeps on following her, since he began to feel quite envious of a 14-year-old elf following the protagonist as they fight together. It seems that in this world everyone is treated as an adult when they reach the age of 14, and both of them continue to have a conversation together to spend their time. Suddenly, Jaryuu announces his presence by knocking down all the water on the protagonist, which gets him quite mad, but Jaryuu continues to mock him for being under his squad as he is his captain. Hypothetically, it makes the protagonist play a prank on him by knocking him down through the hills as he continues to fall down. Then Zack and the protagonist continue to have fun with him while Captain Garbaz arrives, who then calls out for Jaryuu as he is supposed to be in the middle of a mission. Captain Garbaz realizes what truly happened and continued to grab Jaryuu away from the scene as he tries his best to blame it on the protagonist, which seems like a blatant lie to his captain. The protagonist then thanks Zack and he worries about his safety since he could be in trouble, to which Zack states that he hated guys like Jaryuu, and even a rat could be a better captain than him truly. Both of them match up their fists to celebrate their friendship, and then on the third day in Kano's village, they come to realize that it is the place where the dragon showed up 2 weeks ago, and it caused a lot of damage at the village chief's house for some reason. The village chief points out that the dragon had a big scar on its forehead, and even though it destroyed their crops at first, it came back to start attacking their people to tear them apart. When it was about to take a life of a child, an ex-adventurer in the village named Gubara stood in front of the child to protect him, but he was killed instead, and even his body was taken away as nobody knows when the dragon will ever return. Captain Garbus promises that they will be finishing off the dragon so the whole village can stay at ease. The next morning, they start to formulate around the basics of the blue dragon, which specializes in water-type attacks, and realize that it will attack at once when it gets a chance again. Captain Garbus knows that the fight will be hard, but they aren't ready to hold down while the others suffer, so they get ready to march toward the dragon instantly. While they are on their way, a child comes up to Garbus stating that he will be going along with them to save Gubara, who is believably dead, but he insists that the man is still alive but wounded. The boy is ready to show that he can fight, so he asks the protagonist to fight with him to prove that he is good as any adventurer, so Captain Garbus leaves the duty on the protagonist to solve. The protagonist asks for his name and the boy introduces himself as Laru while he hurries to bring the fight against the man standing in front of him. It seems that the boy believes someone like Gubara cannot die that easily, as he is the one who taught him to fight in the beginning. But the protagonist insists that the chances of him being alive are pretty low, and he decides to knock the kid down on the ground to put some sense into him. Then the boy wakes up and stands on the ground stating that he can still fight, which makes everyone feel that the boy has to give up or someone has to stop him, which feels right to Resella. It seems that the protagonist was trying to make him understand the limit of his own strength and Gubara's strength at the same time. Even though the boy didn't try to understand at first, he is now trying to explain how his life ruined Gubara as if he wasn't there in the first place. He would have been alive in the end. He still remembers the smiling face of Gubara as he proceeded to save him through the end, and he requests the protagonist to take revenge behalf of him. Then the whole squad finally starts to march in the direction of the dragon while the boy continues to weep, and Zack soon finds out a dead male body in the lair with a sword which is presumably Gubara's. The moment the protagonist witnesses the sword, he states that he will be using that sword, and suddenly, the whole squad tents get attacked by the blue dragon, who is now ready to show his face in front of the whole audience while the protagonist and Ironu is looking right at him in sheer determination. And that's how the first part of this man ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.